$1,500
Right.
a year, being stupid enough to think that was going to work, but it did.
Yeah.
You know, God takes care of babies and fools, and first year out of college,
Yeah.
making 12.5.
Oh,
right.
yeah, that. What up, good people? We are back for another incredible episode of the Planning Podcast. Now, you may say, what? Two-bedroom house down the hood in Mobile.
And so those early growing, all those guys decided that weekend that collectively, this is what they were going to do.
What's up, Coop? What's up, big dog? Oh, you're doing great. Appreciate you having me. Absolutely. Y'all subscribe, stay tuned, and of course, stay planning. All right. Y'all, we're back. Another incredible episode of the Planning Podcast. Our guest today, I am super excited about because the more I learned about him, the more I was thinking, why doesn't he have a bodyguard? Like, why? How is he just available like this? And so, super excited because he is not only a mentor to so many young leaders, but leaders professionally and personally. He is a father, a husband, and really one of those relationships that you will take to the grave, to be honest. Like, it's one of those opportunities where you're able to build with someone, know them, learn so much from them to where you're like, all right, wherever he is, how I can get in contact with him, I definitely want to reach out. So our guest today is the Roy Johnson.
I'm going to correct you right from the beginning. The Roy S.
Talk to me. That's right.
Johnson. Do not leave out the middle initial.
That's right.
And I will tell you why, if you don't mind.
Let's
I
do
grew
it.
up in Tulsa, Oklahoma at 1039 East Pine
Yeah.
Street. And
Yeah.
for my 16th birthday, my folks got me my own phone, right? So I had my
Okay.
phone, right?
Yeah.
So I had my phone line. And of course, we had phone books
Right.
back then.
Right.
So my name was in the phone book. Next phone, Roy Johnson, right?
Yeah.
So that year, I started getting these calls.
Uh-huh.
And there were women, hey, is Roy there?
Oh,
Like,
wow.
Yes.
Yes, I am.
We started talking. And I realized after a while that they weren't calling me. They were calling a Roy Johnson that lived at 1038 East Pine Place. A grown A man who had a whole lot going on. So that next year, we added the S in the phone book, and I've been Roy S. Johnson ever since.
Did you ever meet that brother?
If I did, he was grown and gone.
Right.
I don't know if I wanted to.
And the ladies, man, so
Absolutely.
that's interesting. So Tulsa, Oklahoma, as you just mentioned, tell us about that upbringing, because there's a lot of rich history based off what you know about Tulsa, Oklahoma. So especially someone that's been able to walk the grounds. Tell us about that history of the city.
Yeah, I was so blessed to be born in Tulsa at that time. To the people who surrounded me and poured into me. I'm wearing a shirt today that says Greenwood, and if you know a little bit of the history of Black Wall Street, Greenwood was Main Street.
Yeah.
That was where most of the businesses were located, the churches, the nightclubs.
Yeah.
They were called Deep Greenwood. Once you got past the churches, you went to Deep Greenwood. I don't know if I ever made it to Deep Greenwood. I talked to some older folks when I wanted to learn a little bit more about Deep Greenwood, but it was the center, the heartbeat of the Black neighborhood. And of course, between 1900 throughout the first half of the 20th century, there were more Black businesses in Tulsa than any city except Harlem. That's how I got the name Black Wall Street. And I was very fortunate because my father owned a business on Greenwood. I later learned, because my father died when I was 12 years old, so I didn't know a lot about him.
Right.
But I grew up in the store. I grew up around him, around the men who would hang out at night and tell lies and talk on their way to Deep Greenwood, the church ladies who would come in after church with the hats, and the kids, because they had a jukebox. So I call it like the Black Happy Days, right? If you're old enough to remember that show, it was kind of a soda fountain jukebox where people hung out. That was what my dad's store was. I wish I had those 45s from that jukebox, but it was a great place for community, great place to learn. I learned how to count by being able to make change, because I had to learn to wait on people. I had made 25 cents an hour, so Dad paid me.
Yeah.
And if I wanted any candy, he would take it out of my paycheck.
Right.
And I was a fat little kid. So my priorities were not correct.
Yeah.
But I learned so much. And there is a woman who is still alive named Viola West. And her second job out of college was working for my dad. And she kind of became a surrogate mom. She still calls me her oldest son because my mother was involved with the church and she had to babysit me a lot. So she tells people that she taught me to read by the time I was 2, that my dad was overprotective, and she'd kind of let me play closer to the street and dad would lose his mind. But that's where she first heard about the Tulsa Race Massacre. She said she was listening to my dad speak to a gentleman in the store. She was 19 at the time, fresh off the boat, so to speak, out of college.
Right.
And they were talking about this race riot at the time, which had happened in 1921. So now we're talking like 1950s.
Okay.
And she went over, she said, Mr. Johnson, was there a riot here? And they started talking about it, but another customer came in. So she went home and she asked her grandmother, said, Grandma, was there a riot here? Grandma said, don't ever mention those words again. Because there was a conspiracy of silence that lasted for decades. I didn't learn about the race massacre until I was at least in high school. Blacks didn't talk about it. Whites didn't talk about it. And when I asked people later on why not, many said that, well, from the African-American standpoint, nobody talks about getting their ass kicked.
Yeah.
And that's what happened is that whites came in on May 31st and June 1st and burned down several blocks worth of businesses, homes, killed people, up to 300 people, depending on who you believe. And it was largely ignored. Nobody was ever prosecuted. Insurance companies wouldn't pay. The reason they called it a riot was so they could blame African Americans who were attacked in their own neighborhood, but they could blame them, and so therefore they didn't have to pay. But what people don't talk about, this was 1921, is the rebirth. So by the time I came along, Black Wall Street had pretty much been rebuilt.
Right.
Maybe not to the extent that it was in the 1920s, but it was still a thriving economic community and neighborhood.
Yeah.
So when people talk about the race massacre, that's not a period, that was a comma. And another example of the kind of resiliency that, flows in our blood going back generations. It was rebuilt, it was restored. And the reason it doesn't exist is maybe another conversation. One time I asked Viola, I said, well, why do you think Black Wall Street disappeared? She did not hesitate. She said, because people like you didn't come home. I was like, okay, because I went to college at Stanford University in California, and then from there moved to New York. And you talk about, I guess, your resources leaving and not coming back.
Yeah.
She thinks that my generation, because we had more opportunities, because we could go to the Stanfords and the Harvards and the wherever. And once we got our footing at those places, we tended to use them as a trampoline and a catapult to go on to something even higher rather than returning home and utilizing those resources there. So, that's a lot, but, I'm grateful. And I'll add one thing. My childhood church was Vernon AME Church. Now, Vernon AME was the only structure that survived the massacre, the basement part of it, the foundation. So when I go back there, it's really seeing rising from the ashes, my spiritual journey really began right there on Greenwood at Vernon AME Church, which is still standing, still congregation is still there. It's really been supported a lot and should continue to be supported because it's part of our history, our American history. When you look at structures that were there now 105 years ago, when the worst of the worst happened, but are still standing, you got to preserve them.
It's incredible. And that the impact, and we're going to talk a good bit about this around storytelling, right? And knowing what stories that need to be told, but also how that impacts one's perspective on what they think they can do, what they need to be doing. When did, and we'll get to your journey to Stanford, as a child, when did that muscle around reading, writing, how did that develop? Like, what triggered your interest into that world around, we'll just say, journalism?
Well, some of it almost had no choice. Forget journalism, just in terms of education. My mother was a teacher. Other relatives were teachers. My father only had a high school education, but he was a smart man. I will. It's a sidebar, but I learned after he died, one of the things I did was try to talk to people who knew my dad so I could get to know him better than I did as a 12-year-old. And I was talking to this gentleman, and he was telling me about my dad, and he was this, and he was that. And then he said, you know your dad ran the numbers, right? I said, excuse me? What? And I started doing my research, and Dad was a gangster.
Yeah,
Dad ran the numbers. I said,
yeah.
no wonder we had a house and 2 cars, and I never lacked.
Yeah. Entrepreneur, son. Entrepreneur.
Right. And Viola, she said, yeah, your dad used to leave the store every day at 11, go home, pull the number. I mean, she talked about it like, yeah, he left the store, pull the number. If somebody won, he sent a runner out. Then he come back to the store, and he close up at night, go back, pull the number. I'm like,
right.
So that's part of it. But just being around people who were thriving despite segregation, right?
Yeah.
They did not allow the rules of that time to define them. If they were maids or butlers in white folks' homes, they came home, they took those uniforms off and put on what they felt they were.
Right.
I had a stepfather, my mother remarried, who had his own lawn service, right? And his clients were some of the richest families in Tulsa. So he got in his truck, drove to the south side of town, took care of them, and they took care of him to the day he died. But he did not allow that to define him. He put on his overalls. When he came home, he took a shower, got comfortable, got in his chair, and did what he wanted to do. So what I learned was that all these people were thriving. I didn't know much about segregation. I didn't know what was going on. All I saw was lawyers and barbershops and restaurants and people going to church. And one of the things that happened for me is in junior high school, my parents sent me to this predominantly white private school on the other side of town, in part because there was a sister who lived across the street who went there. And they said, hey, you should have Roy apply and see if he gets in, et cetera. So I did. And so all of a sudden, I was living in the black part of town, but every day getting up and going to school in a totally different world. Initially, that was maybe 20 minutes from where I live, but when I went to high school, it was a good 30 minutes from where. So I grew up in these 2 worlds, and learned a new language, learned how to learn that I belonged, learned that there were good white people and bad white people, learned that they weren't any smarter than I was. I mean, there were some, but not everybody.
Right.
So being able to walk into a room and not be intimidated. I learned that before I even knew I was learning, right? I was just getting up going to school. And what I loved about that time is when I would come back and I'd see people on Sunday, because some of my schoolmates, the women from my church were the only black person that they knew because they were working in their home. So the people I went to church with were working as maids in some of the homes of my schoolmates. But every Sunday they would say, hey, keep on doing what you're doing. Keep on. You belong out there. So keep on. So just hearing those words on a regular basis from the men who were like, do your thing. Keep going. Men who at that time had survived the race massacre. And didn't talk about it, but who had those memories, right? And so there's this chubby little kid going out to this school who's, smarter and smart aleck and, I got kicked out of Sunday school for asking too many questions, I was raising my hand. So, when God does something, right? And you may not know, you don't know it's happening. The casserole doesn't know it's in the oven. It just knows it's being developed. And so I'm just grateful for that, being that casserole and in that incubator that was Tulsa, Black Wall Street, Vernon AME Church. And you may know the Gap Band is from Tulsa.
Oh, yeah.
And so Gap stands for Greenwood, Archer, and Pine.
I did not know that.
So Greenwood, Archer, and Pine, it's like the two streets that really defined the neighborhood. So Greenwood was the I guess that would be the north-south street, and then the 2 defining east-west streets. Archer was, the whites who lived on the other side of Archer, other side of the tracks. Tulsa is actually where that term came from. And then Greenwood, Archer, and Pine was the street I grew up on. So that's where the Gap Band came from, Greenwood, Archer, and Pine. Learn something. That's right.
Come on,
listen to this podcast. We're not just planning, we learning.
That's right. Man, you bring up so many incredible points, especially around community. One of the funny things about my alma mater, Samford University, is that we would very often get confused with Stanford, and so I ended up starting the Black Alumni Association at Samford a year or so after I graduated. And going back to community, one of the first events that we did was actually for all the cafeteria workers. Because part of my question I'm going to lead into, but being at a PWI, predominantly white institution, there is a lot of, we'll just say, internal processing of value. There's some comparison like, oh, man, yeah, he white, but he ain't as smart as I. Just certain things. You're able to see more, right? There's good, there's bad. But the one moment, or the continuous moments that will always be etched in my heart, are the times that we would walk into the cafeteria and they would say, hey, we so proud of you, baby. Keep going. Mm-hmm. You're doing well. Keep going. And so I was curious about, with your journey going into Stanford, how you were able to manage that coming from Tulsa, but also knowing that the dynamic was going to be different in regards to the types of students at that university. And it sounds like that private school was training before you even got.
That's just what I was going to say. I got that was preschool, as it were, pre-white school.
Yeah.
So from 7th grade through high school.
Yeah.
My class had 57 people in it, and 2 African Americans. So
right.
I'd already, Stanford was nothing.
Yeah. Yep.
Except more diverse. Because all of a sudden there were Asians, there were Mexicans.
Right.
So it wasn't just black and white anymore, which is how it was in Oklahoma and still is in many parts of the country, still is largely in Alabama. So it was more the cultural awakening. It wasn't about being around whites. It was like, oh,
right.
She fine.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say that? We may have to cut that out. But no, I was like, oh my
facts
gosh.
are facts. That's right.
I was at the Baskin Robbins 31 flavors. It was like, oh my gosh, so to get white people, it was
right.
like,
what is this?
That's right. But seriously,
that's right.
Just being around the other cultures.
Right.
So it really wasn't anything to adjust to other than just continuing to grow. Yeah. And this was at a time way before immigration really hit the country, way before diversity hit even the New Yorks and the Chicagos, et cetera. This was the 1970s. So what was happening in California in the 1970s was really a precursor to what is happening, of course, everywhere in the country and has been for the last 30 or 40 years. So that was a blessing too, to be able to be placed there and say, oh, this is different. This is what things could look like. This is what I'm learning from them, learning new foods, learning new music.
Yep.
I mean, the Bay Area in the 1970s, that was the jam, right? I mean, everybody was out there. Sly and the Family Stone, the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
Everybody came through there.
Right,
so
it
was really an opportunity to learn and grow, not just educationally, but just culturally, continue to grow spiritually. But man, I was just exposed to so much more that America has become, even long before America knew it was out there.
Yeah. So what did you end up studying at Stanford?
Do you know who Perry Mason is?
I should know. I feel the name is ringing a bell, but
Perry Mason was the coolest lawyer on TV. He was the Perry Mason show, right?
Yeah, that's
Perry
right.
Mason won every case, wore nice suits, and I didn't know it at the time, but as I go back and look at them later in life, he got all the women too.
Oh, yeah, that's important.
He won. Perry was winning, and so I wanted to be Perry Mason.
Okay.
So think about it. This is 1970s. If you were a smart young African American, you were encouraged to become a doctor or a lawyer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even coming from Oklahoma, that the Wall Street investment banker thing wasn't quite a thing yet for people like me. So I said, okay, I'm going to be a lawyer. So I majored in political science.
Okay.
Now, at the same time, I had been the editor of my junior high paper, the high school paper, which was called The Hallway. So I had been dabbling in this journalism thing. I enjoyed putting stories together and being that person who told stories for my student population. So
who pointed out that talent? Like when did you recognize that my ability to either write or rewrite a particular, like when did that get unearthed?
I really wish I could remember, because obviously there's school counselors
Right.
that say, hey, why don't you try to do this? I probably wrote essays fairly well, I imagine. So English professors might have said, hey, have you thought about working for the paper? I think for myself, I just probably volunteered because I liked writing. I didn't think it could be a profession, though.
Yeah.
Because there were no black writers. I mean,
Right.
there were, but in terms of that being a career.
Right.
So even at Stanford, I wrote for the Stanford Daily. I did a news show we called 30 Minutes.
Yeah.
A weekly news show. I was also a DJ. I had a whole different DJ.
Oh,
voice.
hold on now,
DJ, right?
hold
Had a whole
on
different
now.
DJ voice. But again, those were fun, but I never saw myself doing it because at the time, think about it, there were no blacks on TV.
Right.
There in terms of newspapers, because it was really radio, television, and newspapers. There were black newspapers, but you didn't see us thriving in the wider space. So I never thought of that as a career. So when I graduated, majored in political science, I applied to some law schools, but I also said, let me see if there's a job out there that maybe I could get. So I applied to a number of journalism institutions, and there's a guy named Fred Clark who I'll always be indebted to. He was Time Incorporated's affirmative action officer. So they had hired him to clearly go find talented African Americans, and somehow, again, this is where God works. My resume found its way to his desk in New York, and so he called me and said, "Hey, why don't you come out and interview?" They flew me out. That would never happen today. They flew me from San Francisco to New York, and I interviewed with the top editors of Time, People, Money, Fortune, and Sports Illustrated, all in the course of 2 days. As a matter of fact, I only brought clothes for 1 day. When they told me I had to stay another day, they actually bought me more clothes to wear.
What, man,
the next day,
wow.
right? So that happened. So and ultimately, as I was getting in the car, they would send me back to the airport. Fred said, if you had your choice of magazines to work for, which one would it be? I was tired. I had used all my BS. I had, impressed all these people. The last place I interviewed was Sports Illustrated. I had never really covered sports because I played baseball, and I didn't want to. And a lot of my friends were athletes.
Right,
I didn't want to get my butt kicked back at the dorm.
Right,
Right. Folks I was living
That's
with.
a good point.
So I just said SI because it was the last interview I had. Long story short, ultimately they ended up offering me a job, and that kickstarted my journey into sports. I often think about what would have happened if I had said Time. Or if I'd said Fortune.
Right.
At that moment, that one, think about those intersections.
That's true.
That change your life.
That's true.
That guide the trajectory of your life.
Right.
So I don't know if I answered your question.
You
I think people often ask me how I got into journalism, and I say journalism has always been in me.
Yeah.
Even before I knew it.
Are you a heavy reader?
I am. Probably not as much as I should. I still subscribe to several magazines, and I encourage people to do that. And here's why: these things are only going to give you what you want.
Yeah.
Right. You're not going to see a lot of long form, interesting deep dives into issues. So I subscribe to Time, GQ, Vanity Fair, and The Atlantic, which I think is the best magazine out there. And I encourage people to get a magazine, because when you flip through, you're going to find something that surprises you, right? You're going to, well, this is interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know this.
Yeah.
And while I can't spend a lot of time reading, and if you ask my wife, there are magazines all over the house with pages flipped down to where I left off.
Yeah.
Right? So if I've got an hour or something, I'll just pick up and maybe read one article.
Right.
But I don't learn, like right now, I don't learn what I need to know about the war in Iran from TV or from my phone. I need to go to Time Magazine and say, okay, give me the deep dive in this. Now, when I find something, I might get a link and send it out to somebody. Say, hey, you should check this out. Check this out. But so yes, I'm a reader, and I don't read as many books as I should. Right. But I always tell people, stay curious, keep reading, never stop learning.
It's interesting that those 3 companies you mentioned, and I'm curious about just the Stanford juice, right? So some of part of the beauty of going to Stanford is they talk about the alumni and the opportunities that you'll be able to have once you graduate. Because you didn't mention, and I'm pretty sure that there were local newspapers or opportunities that were there. Like you mentioned some behemoths. So do you feel like being a Stanford alum helped with some of those opportunities that you were able to navigate? Because you got fluent. I was like, that's kind of like, you know, a visit, an NIL deal. Like I feel like you are and were ahead of the curve in regards of especially Black journalists that were being recruited. So do you think the Stanford degree did help with that a little bit?
So I left out one part of the journey. When I did get out of school, I got 2 job offers.
Okay.
One was from Sports Illustrated. The other was from the Tulsa Daily World newspaper. Now, I had been an intern there the prior summer. So I went back home, interned for the Tulsa World, and then when I graduated, they offered me a job. I would have been the first African-American reporter at the World, and this was 1978. But Tulsa World, Sports Illustrated.
Yeah.
I was gone. Mom was very, very disappointed. I said, Mom, I'll let somebody else make that history.
Yeah.
I'm out. So to your point, you talk about the Stanford juice. The Stanford juice is exposure to possibilities. Even today, and I think Nadia, my wife, would tell you this when she's been around me when I'm with my Stanford folks, we're always excited for each other and learning from each other.
Right.
And what are you doing? And they're doing big stuff.
Right.
And solving big problems.
Right.
I mean, part of the educational process at Stanford, and I love this, it wasn't going on when I was there, but it's cross-sectional. So one of the things, they have a project where they'll take 4 or 5 people from different departments. You know, take an engineer, a medical student, an arts student, an athlete, etc. This semester, here's a problem, go solve it. It might be a transportation system in another country. It might be something in a city, a sewer system or something. So you bring all these different people together who come at an issue from different perspectives. One's more artistic, one's more mathematical, one's more humanistic. Right. But they all have to come together to solve a problem.
Yeah.
A big problem.
Yeah.
And so I think that the juice is the level to which you are challenged to. I mean, they say it. We want to produce people who change the world. Right. I mean, that's the mission statement, right?
Right. Well, yeah. That's self-explanatory, right?
In whatever way you want to do it. You can be an artist. You could be an athlete. You could be an engineer. You could be an investment banker. So it doesn't matter. That is the DNA. That's why you're here. And so that never leaves you. So you build this ecosystem of people who just push you, encourage you, and who are proud of you, right? And then who say, hey, have you ever thought about starting a magazine? Oh, have you thought about investing in this? I learned about investments from from a classmate. We were like 5 years out of college, and I had just started in the stock market. I didn't quite know what I was doing, and I bought this new company called Home Depot. And I saw Mark at our reunion, and I knew he was an investment banker. Yeah. And something happened, and Home Depot had dipped. Yeah. Right. And I was like, Mark, what's going on? Home Depot's down. It's down 15%. Should I sell? He said, has anything happened to Home Depot when you go in? Is there? No, it's the same. He said, dude, Home Depot's on sale. He said, if there's a suit you want, you wait for it to go on sale. It's the same suit. Right. You wait for it to go on sale. Said Home Depot's on sale. Right. Go get some more. That's good.
That's good.
Go get some more.
Right.
So you learn those little tricks again because you're in the room.
That's right.
With people who are doing that. So it's a fun group to continue to be around. Unfortunately, I left Stanford right before Silicon Valley happened. Steve Jobs was still in his little garage somewhere. Hewlett Packard was in a garage somewhere in the late 70s. They were there, but nobody knew they were there. It was about 10 years later when a Stanford graduate named Jerry Yang started Yahoo, and things began to take off. So missed that one.
Oh, that's good. And you named the few sources and as well subscriptions that you read to be able to get the information. And so we are in a time in which it's very difficult to know what to trust, right? And so
No, it's not.
tell us how we
Consider the
should
source.
navigate that. There we go.
Consider
there we
the
go.
source.
There we go.
I trust Time Magazine.
Yeah.
Right? I trust The Atlantic.
Yeah.
I trust the Washington Post.
Yeah.
I trust the New York Times. I
Right.
trust the Houston Chronicle. I trust the Chicago Tribune. There are some trusted voices, journalists that I trust. I trust experts. I don't always agree with them.
That's a good distinction.
That's different. But
That's a really
I
good distinction.
trust that they are providing an opinion or perspective based on facts.
Right. Right.
When I hear from readers who are vehemently opposed to something I wrote about, and I say, okay, well, give me a source for what you think, because I know what they're saying is not true.
Right. Right.
And that's what I often say is that I'll have a debate with you, but what you're saying is just not true.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I can't argue with not true.
Right. Right.
And they'll
right,
often send me
right.
a link to something that somebody's fly-by-night place, and all you have to do is Google to find out is X a reputable resource.
Yeah.
It'll tell you no, it's a
Yep.
right wing or it's a left wing, it's
Yep.
this, it's
Yep.
that, or it's total misinformation, or it's a parody site. So it's not hard.
Yeah.
Don't forward everything that pops up on your
Yeah.
timeline.
Right.
Click on it first.
Right. Right.
To read it, just
Right.
to make sure what the source is. So it's not hard. You
Yeah.
just have to put in a little bit of
Yeah,
work.
just a little bit.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not hard. I don't know. You probably didn't grow up. I had all those encyclopedias. Remember the Encyclopedia Britannica?
That's right.
I'd ask questions. They go look it up.
Yeah. That's right.
Go look it up.
Yeah.
Mom would say, go look it up. Go to the library. Go look it up. Now you can look it up on your phone, but
That's
we
exactly
don't.
right. We don't.
So it's not hard.
No, they reading headlines and they tweeting about it 3 seconds later without even getting into the story. So
Right.
so when you think about how much of journalism is reporting facts versus understanding the people or the person?
It really depends. It depends on what you're covering. I think it's both. Whether you're covering sports, whether you're covering business,
Yeah.
whether you're covering community, they're the facts: the who, what, where, when, why. Right? Or you know what the temperature is.
Right.
Reporting the weather. That's
Right.
a fact. Or reporting what happened at a city council meeting.
Right.
But you got to know the city councilors
Yeah.
to know why this happened at the city council meeting.
Right. Right.
And know what their perspective is and that informed their vote. When I was covering sports, or when I was covering the NBA, covering a team, the Knicks, we traveled with them. So you knew them. I mean, you know. I mean, so
Yeah.
when you know them, you're not just looking at a stat sheet after the game.
Yeah.
You may know that they were at the club a little late last night.
Yeah.
'Cause you were there too. Or you might know that they had a death in the family.
Yeah.
Or you might know that their knee hurts a bit, but they're struggling with something. So
Right.
my knowing them informed my reporting, even as I was reporting who won the game, how many points were scored. But when you write features, you get to know the individuals. And I think that was a strength, because I think relationships are one of the foundations of success.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Getting to know people, looking them in the eye and asking them,
Right.
even those that I disagree with, how did you get to that?
Right.
Tell me about your journey and
Right.
and why you're so adamant about your position. I'll tell you what informs my position if you tell me yours,
Right.
because it's helped me have these conversations these days with people who may be Republican or who think differently politically. First of all, politics is only one aspect of our life. You know, there's so many others where we probably agree, like food,
That's right.
sports,
Right.
family,
Right.
faith, music.
Mm-hmm.
But we've put so much stake
Yep.
in politics that it's hard to have conversations with people
Yeah.
anymore. So I always encourage folks to just have a conversation and maybe talk about some other things
Yeah.
first
Let's not
before
start
you get.
with
Are you
politics.
MAGA? What?
Yeah.
So that's important. But I think it's both. It's
Yeah.
not just the facts. If you cover community, you need to know who the community leaders are
Yeah.
and what got them to that point. Why are they serving?
Right.
What made them do that? What is their motivation? So all that informs your reporting. And then where I am as an opinion writer, most reporters, 95%, are just reporting the facts. If you read daily. They're just reporting what happened. Again, you may not agree with it, but they're reporting what happened. You read the Washington Post story recently about the ballroom atrocity that's now ballooned up to $600 million. It's supposed to be $200 million, and initially said there was no taxpayer money. Well, in fact, there is going to be taxpayer money. That's reporting.
Yeah.
But when you know the people in his administration, when you know him, you're not surprised because he lies.
Yeah,
he lies,
yeah.
right? He lies. Right? So
call a spade a spade.
Right, right. So I think it's important to know individuals. So for me, I also have to give my opinion.
Right.
So the reporter will tell you what happened and why. I'll tell you whether it's good or bad.
Yeah.
Whether it's good or it sucks.
Yeah.
Right. And so that gives me another level of responsibility because I'm gonna call you on your BS or I will celebrate you.
Right.
But I have to make sure that I can defend whatever position I take. And in order to do that, I try to know not only as much information as I can, but as much as I can about the people.
That's a good distinction and also very helpful as we navigate so much noise, right? And information, and we say it all the time, check the source. Like, make sure you know who this is coming from. Knowing that you have played an incredible role in regards of documenting so much that is happening within sports, you've been able to be proximate with game changers on and off the court, on and off the field. Definitely going to reference Magic Johnson. And so you've been able to co-write, co-author, I don't know the technical term, a book with Magic Johnson. Can you give us a glimpse into that world? Because we know him as the NBA phenom, and being able to do what I believe most athletes have been able to do over the last 5 to 8 years is be their own voice, right? Like when you think about the Pivot podcast, when you think about I Am Athlete, a good bit of their, we'll just say energy towards it is that we want to be able to speak, but it's, on our terms and with our own platform. You've essentially created the framework for that by being able to work alongside an athlete and probably help them find their voice. So can you just give us a glimpse into what that process was like working with the legend that we know today as Magic Johnson?
Before I answer that question, did I mention the Knicks?
Yeah, I'm coming back.
I'm sorry. I 53 years. 53 years. Hallelujah. Okay. So we'll get back to Irvin. I think that generation of athletes benefited from not having the tools and the platforms that athletes have today.
Yeah.
In the sense that they were able to develop their voice somewhat in private.
Yeah.
But it also meant that they needed people like me. They needed journalists to say what they wanted said. And so our relationship were different back then. I can't imagine covering sports now, that whether you get the same access. I was going to practices. We were traveling on the buses, on the planes, same hotel.
Right.
I mean, we and at that time, I was pretty much the same age as a lot of them. So our access was different. So with Irving, again, he was this kid. He played in Los Angeles. So I only saw him initially twice, 2 or 3 times a year. When the Lakers would play the Knicks or the Knicks would play the Lakers. I'm trying to remember how I actually got to know him, and that's a good exercise for me to think about. But just interviewing, interviewing, and there weren't a lot of black reporters.
Right.
So black athletes tended to notice us.
Yeah.
And sometimes give us a little bit more just different vibe, and you take advantage of that or you nurture that. One of the best conversations I remember having, I had several with Irving. One was early on when we talked about his upbringing in Detroit and Lansing, and that was during the height of the automotive industry.
Oh, yeah.
And he said his goal in life was to get a job in an auto plant, buy a house and a car for his family. Because that's what he saw his father did, right? That was all he wanted to do.
Right.
They did not, you didn't think about becoming a rich athlete.
Right.
So obviously things began to change. And even as he was growing in his career, one of the things that he did, which other athletes did as well, back then they used to travel commercial. And many of the stars would travel in first class, and then the others would probably get coached. But I remember Maurice Lucas. You probably don't know that name. He played for the Portland Trail Blazers and played for the Knicks. He was the original enforcer. He was one of those guys that
Yeah.
he was muscle.
Yeah.
But he would always go around and take business cards for everybody in first class because he was an athlete. He said, they all want to meet me. So he would walk up to everybody. Everybody else would be asleep.
Smart.
He would walk over to everybody in first class and take a business card. He had a book full of business cards. And so Magic took that to another level. You go to the Forum back then, that's where they played. Think of who's sitting on the front row. He would always go and introduce himself to people on the front row.
Yeah.
And a lot of those ended up being the people that he would learn from. Oh, that you want to come have lunch with me? Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And whether you are, especially in Hollywood, and I can't remember some of the names right now, but some of the big representation agencies and things like that, he put himself in those rooms and he just asked questions. How did you do this? Tell me how you did this. So when it came to Starbucks, TGI Fridays, those were just built on relationships. And when you meet and Howard Schultz, who started Starbucks,
Right.
and you get to understand the black market. So his thing was, I'm going to sell the black market to everybody. I'm going to be the conduit
Smart.
to the black market.
Yes.
That's how he began that with the movie theater. All of those were, you can't do this. You don't know this community like I do.
Right.
So give me a franchise.
Yeah. Yep.
Let me put it over here. And you'll see black folks will spend $6
Yeah.
for a cup of coffee.
Yep.
You'll see they'll go to the theater and keep it safe.
Right.
You'll see that they'll go to TGI Fridays,
Right.
etc. And so that was his strategy. And one of the earliest stories when I became an editor at Sports Illustrated was the cover, and you can Google it, called Magic Inc. Because it was him starting to think through what became Magic Johnson Enterprises, but that began with just speaking to people on the front row.
Right. That's incredible. That you know that perspective of Magic, and even when you think about the issues that NFL players, NBA players, that 78 to 80% that go bankrupt 3 to 5 years after their last game, what ultimately he was doing was really in my opinion, the blueprint to have a fail-proof transition, even if it's not at your terms, because you've built the relationships with folks that have the resources to pay top dollar to be entertained, but also they've been able to do something to be able to have those type of resources and those best practices, those insights, that expertise. It could be to help you do it separately, or it could be something that you could do collectively. And we tell the athletes that we work with to make sure that they go to the front office. Like the chief of marketing, they need to know who you are. The VP of development, they need to know who you are. He signs in front of your check. You should at least get dinner with him. Like there's certain relationships that sometimes they don't even feel like they deserve or that they've been able to earn because it's not in the world. And so that equation to build network, but also be intentional, right, on what you're doing with that network is incredible. Have you ever started interviewing someone and there was a perspective that you had, and then after the interview you walked away with a totally different perspective?
Oh, absolutely. Often people ask me when I want an interview, well, what are you going to ask? I usually say, I don't know yet.
Yeah.
I might have, it depends. Maybe a situation. If I'm doing a profile, I'll just start asking questions.
Right.
And so I'd like to be surprised. And now you can do more research and you can find things out, but all the time. And I love interviewing. I mean, I love looking people in the eye and asking them questions, and I'm damn good at it.
Yeah.
I can make you cry in 10 minutes. I can find that spot in your life that'll make you start to tear up.
Yeah.
People hate me for it. Like, damn it, how'd you do that?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But we all have it, right?
Right.
We all have that spot. And if I want to write about you in a profile, this is not just like a game story or something like that. But if I really want to figure out, Mr. CEO, how did you get here? There's some points that I could probably get to where you would,
Yeah. You had to take a deep breath. Like, I didn't know I was going to talk about this today.
Right,
Right?
Right. Could have been your mama, your daddy, could have been your kids or something.
Right.
That changed you emotionally and intellectually. So I think that's I enjoy doing that.
Is there a story that has changed you personally?
I've done so many stories and interviewed so many people, just getting to know people like Arthur Ashe, who, if you don't know, was one of the greatest tennis players that lived, but also one of the greatest human beings.
Wow.
And an ambassador. There's a lot of talk today about whether athletes should boycott the SEC and ACC. If Arthur Ashe was here, he would give such an intellectual response to that. It's like, of course, but here's why. I mean, this is the man who was arrested in South Africa protesting apartheid.
Wow.
Right? And so when you think about that and having been able to sit with somebody like that and hear his perspectives, that of course you do everything you can to try to impact change.
Right.
Even at some risk. Think of all the people who risked just walking out of their homes every morning so you could do this.
Right. That's
today.
right.
So people like that. I did write a story. So many of you may know that Arthur Ashe died from AIDS that was contracted through a blood transfusion. And those of us who knew him and were around him knew something was wrong, but Arthur wasn't public about what was wrong with him. And this was the early days of AIDS and HIV. And people just weren't really talking. This was before Magic came out and talked about it.
Oh, wow.
And so somebody in our circle who was another reporter was forced by his employer, USA Today, to straight up ask Arthur if he had AIDS. And that's what precipitated the press conference where Arthur got ahead of it and told people what he had. And he died not long thereafter. But I wrote a story about why I didn't ask him. And it didn't change me, but it made me, because as a journalist, you're supposed to do that. That's my job, to ask the tough questions.
Right.
But I'm a human being first. And I had to walk through my thought process, even with my boss, because it was I was at Sports Illustrated at the time, and shared with him why I never asked. And he understood. And what I said essentially was, Arthur was not the CEO of a corporation. He was not an elected official. He was not in one of those positions where his existence really mattered to a lot of people, public people. If he was a CEO of a publicly traded company, you need to know whether your CEO is ill or not. If he was a mayor or et cetera, you need to know whether that person's health.
Right.
In business, they call it key man insurance.
Yes, exactly right.
He was a retired athlete, ambassador for a sport. It's none of my damn business. Right?
Yeah.
And my boss said, sure. But USA Today pushed our friend to ask. And so it didn't change me, but it helped me to coalesce around something that would become huge, of course, a few years later when Irvin announced he was HIV positive.
Right. That's a really good perspective, because even when we think about some of the inherited responsibilities athletes have just by being a great athlete, they are sometimes commingled, right, with the same type of responsibilities, just as you mentioned, as a Fortune 500 CEO, just to be able to get insights and perspectives in the same way in which you would, because you would assume that the responsibilities are parallel, right? But it's just like, no, we watch this for entertainment. That's actually a little bit more tied to execution. So having a contingency plan, making sure folks are notified, like there's a little bit more tied to that. And so being able to navigate that, right, with the empathy, but also the intellectual reasoning is extremely important. Is there a particular story that made you angry?
That's a good one. I don't. Well, I do get angry. Let me not lie. Let me not lie. I don't know if there's a story that made me angry. I have written about things that make me angry. So it wasn't necessarily the story. I mean, I've interviewed racists, interviewed murderers. I think I've interviewed people who've, committed crimes that you would not want to be in the same room with them. Yeah. So it wasn't the story that made me angry. It was perhaps what we were talking about,
Right.
that person's journey. But I had to take that off sometimes to do the interview.
Right.
So I'd have to go back and do some research to find out if there was a story that made me angry. I've had some stories, and I don't get angry again. If somebody writes something about me, I don't really care.
Yeah.
As long as it's true.
Right.
If it's not true.
Right. Right.
Like, where'd you get that from?
That's
Like,
right.
you could have just asked me. It's not true.
Right,
So
right.
I try not to get angry too much over stories. I tell stories, and sometimes they may anger others, and what the story's about may be something that angers you. But that's I haven't gotten angry over a story.
Is there a particular story that?
Yeah, be digging in the archive.
Come on,
But go
man.
ahead.
I'm
Right?
coming with it. I'm coming with it. Because there's another question here.
Right.
So even in your quiet time, is there a particular story / memory that always comes back and it just makes you smile? And it could be the process of getting a particular story. It could be the story itself. But it could be randomly working out, doing power cleans, and your time in which you're getting some water, something pops in your head and you just start, what stories typically come to mind in the most random times, but it always brings a smile to your heart?
So there were a couple of stories that I missed. That I didn't see them, even though they were right in front of me. One was not a big deal, and the other one turned out to be a pretty big deal. So I used to cover the Nets, New Jersey Nets. That was my first beat job, and Larry Brown was the coach. Larry Brown, Hall of Fame coach. At the time, he was known as being mercurial. He would jump jobs, right? Larry Brown worked for everybody.
That's a new word, y'all. I didn't even know that word.
Right?
Mercurial,
like the thermometer, like the mercury.
Hey, I'm learning all this right now.
Right?
Thank you. Yes, real time.
So we used to go jogging. We'd go to a hotel. We'd run.
Right.
And most of the time, things would be sort of off the record because that's how you get to know people. You can't
Right.
just be on the record all the time. So we were out jogging one day, and he started talking about Kansas, or started talking about some school, and da-da-da-da-da. He basically was telling me he was about to leave, but it's like I didn't see it.
Right, right.
'Cause I was trying to breathe,
Yeah.
probably. And about 3 days later, a rumor hits, and all of a sudden, I said, Larry, da-da. He said, I tried to tell you. I tried to give you the exclusive. But this one's even better. I started a magazine called Savoy in 2000. And we had launch parties in New York, and then we had one in Chicago. And one of the stories we did in an early issue was on a woman who was running the Transit Authority of Chicago. Big job, right?
Yeah.
Name was Valerie Jarrett. And so we did a story on Valerie. Now, it turns out Valerie also went to Stanford. We were in the same class, class of 78. I'm not sure I even knew that at the time.
Oh, that's even
But
better.
we did the story on Valerie. And so at the Chicago event, she came. And of course, I'm the editor-in-chief, right? So I'm in the spotlight, people coming over, saying hello. And so she comes over and she said, I want to introduce you to one of our local officials. And she said, Barack, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, excuse me? She said, Barack, I said, oh, okay, cool. Hey, brother.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Kept it moving.
Very good. And it became...
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah,
That's the one. That's
I missed
definitely-
that one, right? And so it became frustrating because as things evolved
Yeah.
and began to blow up, I couldn't get an interview with him, and it pissed me.
Yeah.
And I wasn't mad at myself, but it's like, even with Valerie, I mean, I was like,
one
he
call
would
away.
interview with this person or that person, and maybe at the time I think I had moved on to Men's Fitness. And so I kind of wanted to put him on the cover, and ended up going to Men's Journal. I was mad.
Yeah.
That was hot. Ultimately, I did a story on Valerie when she became, and I don't think her official title was chief of staff, but she was his person at the White House. And so I interviewed her at the White House during his administration. And one of the stories she told was that when we get to Stanford, they have this thing called the Frosh Book, and they put your photos in the book. It's usually your high school photo. Some of them look good, some of them look pathetic.
Yeah.
And Valerie, great human being, grew up overseas, didn't have the best first picture when she got there, and it was up on the wall. And she remembers she walked in, and this guy looked at the picture, and he looked at her, and he just walked away. And I said, so do you remember who it was? She said, absolutely. She said, I wonder where that fucking is now. I was like, hey, Valerie, come on.
Right. Hey, remember everything. That's right. That's right.
So
That's
I missed the Barack
cool.
Obama meeting, shook his hand, and off into the night.
Oh, that's one of those ones where you see him later. Hey, you remember 27 years ago when we remember that. For me and you.
Right.
Now, speaking about, and we'll stay on the just topic of significant folks. So one of the times, which was, we were laughing about this earlier, which was cool for me, we were watching The Last Dance, so especially with Michael Jordan. And I forget which episode it was. And this is, I want to say this was right before the pandemic. Was this 2018, 2019?
I got here in 2012. So it wasn't too long after that. It was
okay. Yeah. So everybody's watching TV because anything with Michael Jordan, and especially when it pertains.
Okay, you know what it was? It was the beginning of the pandemic.
Because
there was nothing else on TV.
That's right.
So
it was a
it
time.
wasn't supposed to come out that early.
Right.
But they need because there were no games.
Right.
So television needed, so they rushed it. And of course, everybody was at home. So
that's right.
That's right. Okay,
that's
so it was right at the beginning of the pandemic.
I had a feeling because it was something where I forgot how many series or episodes it had in total, but I was like, well, we got time to watch it. That was like my first thought. And as we were all watching the big screen, next thing you know, I see a face that we all see.
Pops up.
And it's one thing for someone to be featured, right? Like, oh yeah, I was in the background. You saw me over there at Starbucks picking up a napkin. Like, no, it was a significant amount of time. What do people typically, I would say, have a misunderstanding about when it pertains to Michael Jordan?
So again, proximity was so important. Mm-hmm. The fact that I had a front row seat before they started selling them to celebrities. To this era of basketball, the Bird Magic era, which preceded the Jordan era, which came right on the heels of the Julius Erving era. So I got to see players from that era. Not a lot. I never saw Wilt Chamberlain play. I never saw Bill Russell play, but I met them. Yeah, and saw people like whether it's Sidney Moncrief or there's a lot of great players from that era that have kind of been forgotten. Yeah. Then Bird Magic come along, just redefine the game. And then this skinny kid from North Carolina, arrogant kid comes along and dares to try to beat them. And what people forget is that for the first 7 years of his career, Michael Jordan was just a high-scoring guard. I mean, he had not become Michael Jordan to the point that, and it may have been his third year, I'd have to look it up, he hurt his ankle. And he missed 30-some-odd games. And he decided to come back before the doctors thought he was ready, fully ready. I was working for the New York Times. At the time, my editor said, why don't you go out and talk to Michael about him coming back? I said, sure. Got on a plane, called the Bulls, which you call him, said, hey, I'm coming. They said, come to practice. Just talk to him after practice. So I go to the practice facility. And so here is Michael Jordan deciding he's coming back from injury. I was the only reporter there. We sat in the corner and talked. So this was before. I mean, can you imagine how many microphones would have been there?
Right.
3 or 4 years later.
Right.
So and often during his career, sometimes we'd see each other and say, remember that day? Remember that day? So I say all that to say just having proximity to him and understanding just how competitive he was and knowing some of his teammates who said, Michael was crazy. I mean, he beat people up in practice. On the bus. Almost borderline abusive sometimes. You had to be able to take it. But you saw the standard that he put himself, that he held for himself. And if you were going to be the teammate, then he had to depend on you and trust you. And then he had to go through his own fire. I mean, people forget these days in this last series. A lot of people rooting for San Antonio, which was great. That was a young team that showed its youth on many occasions when they weren't able to hold leads. They're gonna be around for the next decade, and they're gonna grow if they can keep that core together. But if you look at the Pistons, used to beat up on the Bulls until the Bulls finally beat the Pistons. And remember, the Pistons walked off the floor mad.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look back at history, every team had to overcome something.
Yeah.
So, and the Knicks went through it last year, right? When there were expectations, and they didn't make it. They ended up firing their coach and bringing in Mike Brown. So it's just that he is probably not much you don't know. And back then, I was getting interviewed for documentaries all over the place because I had proximity to just about everybody,
right?
And had a front row seat to seeing games for years. And so, if you want to do a story or a documentary on Moses Malone, or I produced a documentary on called Ernie and Bernie on Bernard King and Ernie Grunfeld, who were teammates at the Knicks and who played at Tennessee. So I had those kinds of access. Right. So I had done that interview. It was just another interview. Some people, they rent a hotel room. I was here at the time, and they sent a car, wanted me to come there in Atlanta and just sit down for the interview. So that interview was maybe at least a year old, if not 2 years, almost forgotten I had done it. And just ask questions about Michael.
Right.
And so, of course, I didn't even know whether I'd made the cutting, made the cut.
Right.
I was joking with the producer as it was beginning to air. And I said, am I on the cutting room floor? Did I make it? He said, no, you made it. So I wasn't watching because I just didn't watch. And I remember one day I was sitting out on my deck at my apartment. My phone just started blowing up. And I said, something must be wrong. Is it my kids? Or something? And all of a sudden I looked down and I was like, oh, Last Dance is on. Because people were like, what just happened? What's your face doing all of a sudden showing up in Last Dance? So I was very blessed again. And I mentioned this to you before. God has put me in places and spaces that I could never have imagined. Being a kid from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And that was just part of it. Turned the page on that and ended up in Birmingham, Alabama.
Speaking of Birmingham, uniquely enough, Michael Jordan has some history with Birmingham and playing baseball on the Barons. I've listened to a few interviews that you've done, and you brought a very really good perspective on one's relationship with the term failure, alongside what Michael Jordan was navigating during his time in Birmingham. And because typically, in the game of sports, it's very binary. Did you win? Did you lose? How many home runs did you hit? But unfortunately, and oftentimes, we don't see the person under the helmet, right? We don't see the person without the jersey. Can you shed light on what led Michael Jordan to get into the game of baseball as we are right here in the magic city of Birmingham?
His dad was a fan. His dad loved baseball. And if you recall, at that time, his father had been murdered and kidnapped. It took many days for them to find him. And so this was suddenly not just Michael Jordan, but this was a young man going through grief. Ultimate grief, losing your parent, losing your father. And his spirit just led him to do something to honor his father. He'd already won 3 championships, I believe, at that stage. And none of that was as important. He needed to step away. I mean, he needed to get off that stage to grieve and figure out how to honor his dad. And so his dad loved baseball. And so his time in Birmingham, for those who are statistic minded, may have been a failure, but for those who are spiritually minded, it was golden. Right? This man made it to triple. Is it double A?
I believe so.
He made it to double A. He was okay. He got hits.
Right.
Stand up there against one of those pitchers.
I ain't got nothing on it.
Right. I mean, I played up until my freshman year of college, and I saw that first Division I curveball. I said, no, I'm out.
Yeah, that's right.
Right back to the classroom. So he excelled to the point where that was not his game. He didn't play baseball.
Right.
He learned it and he did it. He exposed himself. He took a risk. One of the things I often share with groups is be prepare for success, but be unafraid to fail. If he had been afraid to fail, he would not have done that.
Right.
If he'd been afraid to fail, he wouldn't have taken the last shot of the game.
Right.
But he prepared for it through practice. He prepared for it by studying opposition. He prepared for baseball by humbling himself, going to get on a team bus in AA ball in Birmingham, Alabama, all to honor his dad and not embarrass himself. He never saw it as an embarrassment. Did he want to hit a home run every time? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But he didn't see that as the measure of success. He was doing what his spirit led him to do and doing it for a reason that meant everything to him. And what y'all thought did not give it to him.
That's good. What would you say with your proximity to so many incredible athletes? Are there any characteristics that jump out to you that would be a differentiator between a great athlete and a legacy athlete?
Well, there's another level. I mean, my great is legacy, right?
So we can say good to great.
Right, good to great, because they're all good.
Yeah, that's right. Shout out Jim Collins on that one.
Right, they're all good, but the great ones, that's a little crazy and great.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about the great ones,
especially
again, having some proximity to them, I mean, one of the ones I think about is John McEnroe. So he went to Stanford. So he was a freshman when I was a senior. So I got to know him there. That was the year he came off of making the quarterfinals at Wimbledon as a high school kid before he got to Stanford. And so I knew him, still know him, and watched him play. And what most people, their perspective on a John McEnroe, oh, he's ass, he's this. And I said, first of all of his outbursts, he never cursed. Go back. You'll never find any footage of him, because that means he didn't lose control. He knew where he was, but if you knew him, he was like a volcano. You could start to see, okay, this is about to go down. And he would start puffing. He would get this look on his face. But that genius never left him, right? He was great. And usually when he would argue an umpire, he was probably right, because his eyesight is much better than the umpire. Those are regular folks trying to determine what a 110-mile-an-hour tennis ball did on a line. Now they have electronics for that. They call it in or out. He was probably right because his eyesight was better. But you think about great athletes, most of them have some little crazy in them, but it's good crazy.
Right.
And of course, hard work sets them apart. Resiliency. How many documentaries of great athletes talking about Kobe Bryant will tell you the story about how they went to the club and Kobe went back to the gym. Right. So that element of just extra hard work plus hard work, and the ability to have short memories about things that didn't work, that missed shot, you process it and you move on. Right. I always say golf is a great game, and they said in golf the least important shot in golf is your last shot. And your most important shot is your next shot. The sooner you can make that transition, the sooner you'll leave that bad shot behind and focus on what you have to do with the next shot.
That's right.
And so I think what separates the great ones, the legacy ones, are just hard work upon hard work, resiliency, and just a commitment to winning. Just a commitment to knowing everything they need to know in order to win. They won't always win, but they don't see that as a defeat. They see that as another opportunity to learn and grow.
Which of those characteristics, when we think about our business leaders, right? Because there's been a number of characteristics that you pointed out in those great or championship level type athletes. Which characteristics are most transferable to business leaders that has nothing to do with sports?
I think all of them. I mean, think about business leaders. They were there to open the doors and usually stay late. They went to work at another place in order to learn something before they started their thing. So even if you read Steve Jobs' biography, which is great, everybody should read it. I mean, his attention to detail was crazy. from so I'm gonna start stores. Nobody was buying computers at stores when he decided to open Apple stores. Everybody was online with I can't remember the name of it, the draft boxes, and then Dells.
Yeah.
And not only did he open a store, but he wanted marble from France. He wanted this. Even the touch screen. There weren't touch screens back then. There were dials. But he had to find this particular film. We take it for granted now that you can touch your phone.
Right.
That's because Steve Jobs found that and made them. I don't want a pen. He said, I'm not going to do a phone with a pen.
Right.
So they had to go through 15, 20 different incarnations to find that thing that's allowing you to do something that you take for granted now. Right. So I think all of them and resiliency, little crazy, There are folks who work for him who were fired.
Right.
We'll tell you about some tantrums.
Yeah.
Steve was a little extra.
Yeah.
But I think all of those traits, hard work, resiliency, a little crazy, but just the ability to determination to just continue to reach for more, to do better, to do more, to expand and grow.
Right. You've written extensively about community, business as well, race. Why is it still uncomfortable for folks to be able to discuss topics like this?
We only know what we know, but we know what we feel. It's uncomfortable when you start moving into a space where you may not have all the information, but you feel what you've been taught. You feel what you've experienced. That's why I often ask people, how did you get here?
Yeah.
I've had some people who have vehemently disagreed with me share with me their journey, and you can see why they got to that point.
Right.
And maybe I was the first person who said, maybe you should see this from this perspective.
Yeah.
Here's why I feel the way I feel. And my passion is very simple. I want everybody to win. I think everybody should be treated with respect and have the opportunity to thrive. And that opportunity means having fresh food within a reasonable distance. It means having healthcare at a reasonable distance. It means having good schools. It means having safe neighborhoods. Right? I think everybody deserves that.
Yeah.
And so what can we do to ensure that people do that as opposed to trying to use their SNAP benefits to pay for tax cuts instead of ripping people off the street who have traveled hundreds of miles to come here for that opportunity. Instead of ripping them and their families apart, why are we not nurturing them and providing them a path to citizenship? Because they're contributing to the economy. They want the same dream.
That's right.
That you and I have, but we just had the luck of birth, I guess, to be here and be in this environment and have the opportunity to do what we do. Everybody should have a chance.
Yeah.
And as much as we can, it's never going to be even. It's never going to be a level playing field.
Right.
But we should never tolerate that the life expectancy here in Inslee is 10 years less than it is in Mountain Brook.
Yeah.
We as a people should not be tolerating that. And I mean, we as Americans should not be tolerating that. And we should be doing everything we can to ensure that a child born in 2026 in Inslee has the same opportunity to thrive as a child born in 2026 in Mountain View.
Yeah. Yeah. What happens when communities lose touch with their history?
You don't know where to go if you don't know where you've been. And that's why I'm a big believer in history. I think as a nation, it helps us to know most of this stuff isn't new and where it came from. Social Security didn't always exist.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So find out why it was started and what was the original purpose. Healthcare, all these things are new and they've happened in the last 100 years. Some of them even less than that. If we don't know what we did, then we're doomed to repeat some of those mistakes. And I write I do a newsletter that I publish every week. It's free, called The Barbershop. You can Google it and sign up for it. But I have a section there called This Day in Our History. And I don't consider it Black history, consider it American history. And I don't do the obvious. I don't do Martin Luther King's birthday or this. I try to find people that we weren't taught
Mm.
in school. As a matter of fact, I'm working on a book called 365 Things We Weren't Taught in School.
Mm.
Because I've done so many of them. I'm like, man, and like this week wrote about the first commissioned officer in the U.S. Navy, black commissioned officer in the Navy. Turns out to be a guy who was born in Chicago, went to Boston College, graduated cum laude, went to Harvard Medical School. This was the beginning of World War II, and the U.S. was in desperate need. Navy was desperate need of doctors. They needed doctors, and so they decided that they went around to medical schools, and said they would commission anyone who enlisted right then and there. Again, this was before the internet.
Right.
They didn't know there was a brother at
Yeah.
Harvard Medical School. And so apparently, in part of my research, I read that when they discovered this, they were like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? Do we have to commission him? And they did. And so they commissioned him while he was still in school. And then 3 years later, he was called up to enlist. But the first African-American commissioned officer in the Navy was kind of by accident. But it's great stuff, right?
That's
We should
right.
know about him. And so I
That's right.
love learning.
Yeah.
I said, if I don't know it, then I know everybody else doesn't
That's right.
know it. So that's what I try to do each week, is introduce you to something or some event that we weren't taught in school.
Yeah, that's funny how policy outweighed their perspective. Like, oh, it's on paper, it's policy, we got to honor it.
Right.
Speaking of policy, there has been a number of things that you champion, but this particular one is something that will, of course, outlive all of us in regards of what it can and what it will continue to do. You've had some experience in regards of working with the state, but specifically in regards of prostate cancer. Do you mind giving us a glimpse into that world? And then as you navigated and championed and continue to champion what we all need to do, why you felt like it was important for others to not only be aware, but also policy to play a role in their awareness in their process?
I mentioned that my father passed when I was 12, and back in that day, they didn't allow kids to come up in the hospital, and they certainly didn't talk about cause of death.
Yeah.
My brother was 9, I was 12, and so it wasn't until years later, I was an adult, that I happened to find his death certificate, and it said cause of death, prostate cancer. I was like, oh, okay, did not know that. Fortunately, I had been someone who always got an annual checkup. I've been going to the doctor for as long as I can remember. So I thank them for probably planting that seed in me. So I always got tests. And for years, of course, the test of prostate cancer is that digital test that brothers don't want to do.
Right.
And for me, it's like, look, 5 seconds of discomfort versus dying.
Yeah.
Right?
A fact. Yeah.
Then years later, the PSA test, the blood test emerged. And so I would always get blood tests for everything, HIV, et cetera. And if nothing else, it gives you a baseline.
Yeah.
That every time you go back, you know what the test was before. So when you get to my age, and the time probably in my 60s at the time, I started going to the doctor every 6 months as opposed to every year. And that PSA test. And then last year in May, you get a call you get your checkup. You don't get a call from the doctor. You get a call from the doctor's office. They say, well, we want you to, this PSA thing kind of spikes, so we want to take a look. So that started the process. Of course, I remembered that my father had died from it. And so I had to start kind of preparing myself mentally for what could be potentially some devastating news. Ended up having a biopsy, and they discovered cancer, fortunately, early stage, but you hear the word cancer, you don't care whether it's early.
Yeah.
It's all you hear is your name and the word cancer in the same sentence. And so I had to deal with that personally and with my family. One of the hardest things I've ever had to do was get on the phone and FaceTime with my children and tell them that their dad had cancer. But through that all, it never dawned on me not to write about it. I'm a journalist, and how can I spend a career asking people to share their most vulnerable moments if I was not willing to share mine? So it was in July of last year, July 2nd, when I heard that they did find cancer. And I think it was about September when I wrote the first of what I call my cancer chronicles and revealed to the world. And I called a few people that I knew would kick my ass if they read it first. So the day before it was coming out. But I always was going to do that because I felt that it was my calling to help people to live better. That's what I do, right?
Yeah.
Be better.
Yeah.
Be better. Let's be better today than we were yesterday and try to be better tomorrow than we were today. Part of being better is being healthy.
Yeah.
And if someone did ask me, say, why are you writing about this? And I had to think about it. I said, if I can encourage one man to go get a PSA test and it saves his life, that's worth it. That's all I wanted.
Right.
Little did I know that thousands of people would respond, men all over the place, men who, I don't like anything you write, but I'm praying for you.
Yeah.
You made me go get my PSA test.
Right.
And there's nothing like that's health is one of those areas that prostate cancer doesn't care what side of the aisle you're on.
That's right.
They don't care who you voted for.
Right.
And so as part of my writings, I had learned that last year in the Alabama legislature, a bill had been brought up that would make prostate cancer screenings free to men over 50, the high-risk category, and African-American men. 1 in 8 men in America will get prostate cancer. Think about that. Next time you were with your buddies, do the math.
Yeah.
1 in 8. African-Americans, it's 1 in 6.
Jeez.
So you're talking about the basketball team and a couple of reserves.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
1 in 6 of us is going to get prostate cancer. So what do we need to do? We need to get tested so we can detect it early. We're also more likely to die from it because we don't detect it early.
Yeah.
And so as I wrote and I found out about this bill, I was like, well, why didn't it go through? It's one of those bills that died at the end of the session. It just didn't get a vote. It passed the Senate 36-0, but in the House it died. What I think happened, and no one specifically said, this was the first year of the Trump administration and second administration. And of course, he was already killing DEI, killing all the health research that may have focused on health disparities, anything black. He was trying to white it out, right? And so I think they got some cold feet because of that provision that said it was also for black men. So I think they just let it die. So this was after the session. I reached out to Jeremy Gray on the House side, who was one of the sponsors, and reached out to Senator, because I got everybody's number. Right? Or if I don't, I can get it. So I just said, hey, what happened to this bill? And what happened? And shared my story. And I said, it'd be great if y'all drop this early in the next session and get it passed. So I wrote about that. And they did. It was like the first or second bill that was dropped in the Senate, and it passed through the Senate again. Took some time to get through the House. But again, the way God works, the same time, a bill was dropped by a female member of the House, a breast cancer bill, to make breast cancer screenings free, certain screenings, because that's what she had gone through. So these were two identical bills. They literally were the identical bills, except one said prostate cancer, one said breast cancer. So one of their own was standing up and advocating for this. And then this is important too. Blue Cross Blue Shield was behind it. They supported it. You can't do anything in this state without Alabama Power and Blue Cross Blue
That's
Shield
exactly
supporting it. And I remember the representative from Blue Cross and Blue Shield coming up to me and saying, yeah, this is great. Thank you for pushing them. So I showed up on the day that it was finally going to be voted on. You have to get on the calendar. Let's go through committees and all the things that a bill has to do, and it was going to be voted on. So I'm there. And of course, I know a number of legislators, and I started to get these text messages. Said, do you know what's going on? I said, what are you talking about? He said, there's an effort to try to name this bill after you. I'm like, excuse me? I mean, that's like, part of me didn't want it. Because as a journalist, we cover the news. We don't want to become the news. And I had to think about, wait, what am I going to be able to cover something if all of a sudden my name's
That's a good
on
point.
the bill, if it's going to compromise, blah, blah, blah. And I had a friend and somebody say, look, it's an honor. Just get on the train and ride it. I said, okay. God and I had a conversation. She said, listen, let me do my thing. And so I happened to be there that day. The bill passes. And in order to be in the chamber, you have to have a certain attire. You have to have a tie. So I had an open collar shirt, but I didn't have a tie. So I actually texted one of the legislators, "You got a tie?" so he went to their office, got me a tie because I wanted to take photos. I had my camera. And so I was inside the chamber right at the back when the vote was taken. And then Representative Waddling Van at the time proposed naming the bill after me. So they gave the House member and the senator each gave us one person. So the other person is a gentleman from Huntsville who had encouraged the senator to sponsor the bill. And then I'm the one who tweaked Jeremy Gray. So it's named after us. So yeah, there's a bill in the state of Alabama named after this Negro from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I ain't dead. Usually they say, they usually don't name a bill after you until you're dead.
That's right. You're like right now.
Right.
That's good.
So it's you know, we often talk about how God can do exceedingly abundantly beyond all you can think, see, or imagine. And that is clearly it manifests. That was not anywhere on my bingo card. Was to get a bill in the state of Alabama named after me that would make prostate cancer screenings free for Black men. And so that clause is still in there.
Right.
For Black men and men over 40.
That's good. That is, I know we talked about the levels of good, great, and legacy being commingled within the great. That's legacy work. You know, that is an A.G. Gatson type of approach. You find a need and you fill it. Just shouting out more of these Birmingham heroes. And you are definitely one that Birmingham has been able to adopt and inherit with that. A few more questions before we wrap up. And Roy and I, we talked about this, and I don't know if I've shared this on the pod, but a couple of months ago, I had a procedure done, and unfortunately, the anesthesia that was administered, just the numbers weren't right. And when I came to, that's when I learned that I wasn't breathing for an amount of time that made everybody uncomfortable. And so doctors and everyone was rushing in. And then even as I, was able to come to, my lens of life changed drastically. Now, I was grateful of all the technical stuff. Okay, I got my will in place. We got an estate plan. We have our trust in place. What I deemed as something I was appreciative of became more and more minute. You know, I would walk outside and be like, man, I'm glad I got all my limbs. Man, I'm glad. Oh, it may be sweltering hot, man. I just love the sun. Like, there were just so many things. I remember picking up my kids the first time from school, and I was just boohoo crying as I'm just the thought, or even the term. I had a tough time even saying cancer just now, you know. And so sometimes so there, ultimately, my question is, there is a perspective that may have shifted, or certain things that may have Can you speak on that in regards of, you know, you hear the diagnosis, you're taking immediate steps to address it, but as you work through life that has reoccurring events, and we're working at it at a certain time, having these certain conversations, what shifted for you?
Cancer, prostate cancer in particular, I said it was like an honorary relative that showed up unannounced and won't leave. Right? Like, dude, get out of here. Right? Leave me alone. And during those early weeks, that dude was in my ear all the time. I'd be in the gym trying to lift the bar, and he'd say, "You got cancer." I'm like, "Leave me alone." I'd be in the grocery store trying to buy some food. You know, you got cancer. And so I had to work through that, of course, as I mentioned, talking to my kids, and then thinking about planning, thinking about, we've been talking about going to Morocco, right? Well, we can't put that off, right? Because you don't know. So that window that I allowed myself to live in was immediately short. Now it has extended as I have gone through. I'm doing active surveillance, which is meaning I'm monitoring my PSA, haven't had surgery, haven't had chemotherapy, because my stage was so early that I was able to choose this. And now I know that most men are choosing active surveillance. So I feel fine. There are no symptoms at this stage for prostate cancer. So when I now I'm at the stage where I forget I have it until people walk up to me and say, "How you doing?
Yeah,
That,
like,
that
what
puppy
happened?
dog
Yeah,
look
yeah.
on their face. I'm like, I'm fine. How are you?
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, my knees hurt, my back hurts,
that's right.
my wrist hurts. I got other pains that much more bothersome right now than prostate cancer. So
Right.
I'm allowing myself. I just had my 70th birthday. I'm allowing myself to think about my 75th.
Yeah.
I'm allowing myself to, with the understanding that things could change, but I'm allowing myself to be in a place that I've termed thriving. Right.
Yeah.
So with cancer, you hear of being a survivor.
That's good.
And that usually means that the person is cancer free.
Yeah.
So I'm not cancer free that I know of. Right. I still have it in my body at low levels. My doctor initially said you're likely to die with prostate cancer than from prostate cancer because there's a 97% survival rate.
Yeah.
Right? 97%.
Yeah.
You take that, right?
Yeah.
I go into
Like them
Vegas,
numbers.
Vegas
Yeah.
and bet in the house
Come on
on
now.
97%, right? So once you understand, again, it's knowledge, it's information and getting different opinions. So once I was able to absorb all that and take a deep breath, and God was like, you trusted me before, you don't trust me anymore. So we got stuff to do.
Yeah.
So and again, that the scripture that I wear around my neck, those who wait upon the Lord shall be renewed, right? So rather than having that immediate surgery, it's like, come on, let me do my thing.
Yeah.
And then of course, 2 Chronicles 12:9 says, my grace is sufficient, my power is made perfect in your weakness.
Yeah.
And even last week, our pastor preached about weakness is not necessarily illness. Weakness is the absence, not necessarily the absence of power, but it's the birthplace of God's power. And so when you think about everything that's happened over the last year, what has transpired since I was diagnosed,
Right.
that's his power.
Yeah.
It manifested and was made perfect in the midst of my weakness.
That's good.
So I'm living with that every day. Like, okay, God, what else we got? We gonna finish this book?
Yeah.
We gonna finish this screenplay?
Yeah.
We gotta do this? Okay, cool.
Right.
Now it's made me prioritize some things.
Right.
I don't deal with foolish. I did deal with foolishness before. I really don't deal with it now.
Yeah.
You know, my wife teases me. Say, you don't want to go out, but I don't have time. Right?
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
You know, she'll say, somebody wants to have dinner with us. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Like, who are they? I become that grouchy. I don't need any more friends.
That's right.
I'm good. Right?
That's right.
So I allow myself to live and trust and know that if it's meant for me, it will be. And everybody around me, like, okay, we're good. We got this. So.
Right. I thoroughly appreciate, your transparency along the way. Of course, the daily courage. Speaking of golfing, I was golfing with a group of brothers, and from your article, one of them said, hey, I know I ain't trying to make this weird, but hey, everybody getting their prostate check. And it was just like, and I was like, wow, because we've golfed together over a couple of years, and that has never been something in regards of a check-in, you know? And so I encourage, of course, all of our listeners and anyone that that is approaching the age of 40 to go in and build that into your annual checkups, especially all of our former athletes, because even me, the only time I would get a checkup was for football.
Right.
And then after that, I'm like, well, I may be mad because my abs went down, but there was never any reason unless it was something tragic. And so just knowing what is happening within your body is important. And the fact that this bill exists now, cost doesn't have to be, a reason or why.
And if you are a woman, tell your brother to get checked.
Yeah.
Tell your man to get checked. Tell your uncle to get checked.
Yeah.
Tell your daddy to get checked. Any man in your life, tell them to get checked. I had a woman come up to me at the National Association of Black Journalists convention last year, and she was saying how her brother wouldn't go to the doctor. He's a military, he flew planes and shot people.
Yeah.
And she's like, why would you go get a test? I'm scared. I'm scared. Right? But that fear.
That's right.
But my doctor told me something. This is my primary doctor. He said, now you know the enemy that you're fighting. He said, if you had not gotten checked, you wouldn't know. You can't fight an enemy you don't know.
That's a good point.
I'd rather know what I'm up against.
That's a good point.
So then I can devise a battle plan.
Right.
You can't do a battle plan for an invisible enemy.
That's a good point. So many. As we like to call this, free jewelry. So if y'all hear all that clink, 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 that's all the jewelry you need to be picking up because Roy is definitely dropping them. All right, last question. What do you hope people remember about Roy Johnson?
You could tell a story.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could tell a story.
Yeah. That's good.
Okay.
That's good. I love that. I love it. I love it. Well, y'all, I lied. This is the last question. Roy, how can they follow you? Like, because you actively share your insights, perspectives internationally, because your audience is all over the globe. Are there any platforms that they could subscribe to, follow, to ensure that they can stay proximate to this jewelry you continue to drop?
Sure, absolutely. On Instagram, I'm at Roy S.J. and the same on Facebook. You can follow me there and also subscribe to my newsletter, The Barbershop. If you Google Barbershop and Roy S. Johnson, you'll see a link to a form. So just drop your email there and you become among the thousands of people
There we go.
who get my nuggets every week in the barbershop.
Excellent. Well, Roy, always
Absolutely,
appreciate you, brother.
Thank you.
You can see why Roy has been a mentor for me as well, personally and professionally. There's been a number of things that we've talked about that even now as we do it, it was like, hey, you remember when we talked about that over lunch 8 years ago? Not, you know, just so many things that's been able to come to light, but also the encouragement along the way. Because it's always good to be able to speak with someone and get insight, but it's also much stronger to be able to watch them do their work and get inspiration. And so thank you for who you are and who you continue to become into, because we're all evolving. And for everyone that is watching, that is listening, make sure you subscribe, stay tuned, and of course, stay planning.
The value of college is